Alright, so thank you so much, Miss Marjorie Lagang. Okay, hello everyone. I am Hubert A. Torrentira of BSL Social Studies 2, Group 6 of EDUC 2, and I will be discussing about conditions and principles of transfer. So the first condition or factors affecting the transfer of learning is the similarity between two learning situations. Its principle: the more similar the two situations are, the greater the chances that learning from one situation will be transferred to other situation. Its implications involve students in learning situation and tasks that are similar as possible to the situations where they would apply the task. So, these first factors will tell us that if two situations are closely related to each other, then the more chances that we will transfer or apply our learning from the first one to the other one. For example, no, take this example. The mathematics teachers show her solution in the board on how to extract the square root of the equation x squared equals 64. So after showing her solution, after letting her students to understand on how to solve the in extracting square root of the equation x squared equals 64, she let them to solve in their seats using another equation which is x squared equals 81. So from that situation, we can say that the learnings of the student in extracting the square root based on what the teacher showed their board will be applied to the other equation which is the same on the equation given by the teacher or solved by the teacher on the board, because they are the same, since the equations are closely related to each other. So even in our real life situations, in our real life daily life, no, our learnings, no, on how to do that thing which is similar on doing that thing also, of course we will apply our learning from here to another, since they are closely related. So maybe we have the same output, the same outcome as we do that thing. Next factor is the degree of meaningfulness, the relevance of learning. The meaningful learning leads to greater transfer than raw learning. Remember to provide opportunities for learners to link new material on what they learned from the past. The question is, how to make a learning meaningful? Okay, so to make learning meaningful is letting the learner to relate, to link the new material on what they learned from the past. So our background, our stock knowledge will be used in learning a new thing. For example, in learning a multiplication, no, operation, no, times, we need to go back the basic addition operation, because multiplication is the complex process of addition. So if we have no background knowledge on addition, then we proceed to multiplication, then it will be difficult for us. Therefore, in learning the multiplication, we need to link, to go back our previous learnings on addition. So, no, in discussion of the teacher of a new topic, no, we observe that the teacher asked, "Do you know about that thing which is related to that new topic?" This is to check, no, if we have already the previous knowledge in order to make it meaningful or relevant to the new one. Because if that will be related, it is easy for the transfer of learning. It is easy for us to learn. So, example, in multiplication, if we already know on how to add many more numbers, then it is easy for us to apply the multiplication operation. Next is the length of instructional time. So its principle: the longer the time spent in instructions, the greater the probability of transfer. To ensure transfer, teach a few topics in depth rather than many topics tackled in a shallow manner. So time is very crucial in learning. The more time allotted in learning, the more that we learn compared to short duration. So as we noticed, as we remember, as we go back our elementary years, no, we observed that our teacher before taught us addition for one grading period. Imagine how long with that when compared to our high school, just one day or one session. So it is because to ensure, no, to ensure that we really learn the basic, the foundation in solving. So in every time that we learn something, it really takes time for us to learn. The more time that we spend, that we allocate for that topic, the more that learning that we learn, because we have to dig deeper. We have to understand it thoroughly. So it is not good, no, for us teachers to give many topics in a one session, because the transfer of learning will be impossible, be shallow. It is good that one topic at a time for better understanding and excellent transfer of learning. Alright, so next is the variety of learning experience. Exposure to many and varied examples and opportunities for practice encourages transfer. Illustrate new concepts and principles with a variety of examples. Plan activities that allow your learners to practice their newly learned skills. So, as what we observe here in school, no? As we go to in school before this pandemic, we encountered a lot of activities, no? In school. We're not just writing, not just reading, not just solving mathematics, but we also engage in sports, in singing, in dancing, in any other extracurricular activities. Why? Because it is a way, no, for us to expose to many and varied examples, because without those activities, maybe our learning will be not so meaningful, not so purposeful. Maybe we're just focusing on one. What if our future career will be doing like this, which we do not learn from our previous years? So what will happen? It is very difficult for us. So that's the reason why in school there's a varied learning experiences. So the more activities that we engage, the more learnings that we get. So that's always remember. So teachers are encouraged to plan many activities which align to the learning objective, to the learning competencies to be attained in a particular topic, to ensure better transfer of learning. Alright, so next is the context for learners' experiences. Its principle: transfer of learning is most likely to happen when learners discover what they learn is applicable to various contexts. Its implications: relate a topic in one subject to topics in other subjects or disciplines. Relate it also to real life situations. Alright, so it's very good. It is very important that we let the learner to think the importance of what they learn. What is the importance of learning mathematics in learning physics? Diba? So our learnings in mathematics will be useful in learning physics. Our learnings in making an essays, making any paperworks or any essays, documentaries, will be useful in making a thesis or making any research papers. So we need to have, no, we need to we need that learners to discover what is the importance of this concept, of this topic that we discussed. And another thing is to relate in real life situation. If we will able to relate the real life situation, that given topic that we have, then the students will be more encouraged that we need to learn, because it is very useful, it is very relevant in our life. For example, we teach the student on how to add, subtract, multiply, and divide. And we told them, class, it is very important, especially as we grow older. When you go to the market, you're asked by your parents to have that to buy, and you give money. So as the students encouraged to do that, then he really feel that the learning is very important. So transfer of learning is attained by that factor. So now let's proceed to the focus on principles rather than task. That's principles transfer easier than facts, then zero in on principles related to each topic together with strategies based on these principles. Alright, so in having an effective transfer of learning, we need to focus more on the principles rather on task because principles are constant in nature. For example, every number multiplied by 0, the answer is 0. If we will focus more on the task rather than on the principle, can we say 4 times 0 equals 0, 5 times 0 equals 0? There's the constancy. But we focus on the principle, it will be constant in nature. So, it's very easy to instill in the mind of the learners if we will be focusing more on the principles because tasks can be changed depending on every situations that we will use. So we need to zero in on the principles and the topic together with its strategies based on these principles. So principles based discussion. Next is the emphasis on metacognition. Its principle, student reflection improves transfer of learning. It encourages students to take responsibility for their own learning, to reflect on what they learn. That's the very important that the student will reflect on what they learn. For example, after watching a movie, the teacher asks her students to write a reflection paper based on what they learn, on what they feel, on what they can say, or what can be the critic to the movie they watched. So, from that activity, the teacher encourages her learners to reflect on what they really learned from the movie, on what's the internal or their feelings within or towards the movie. So it's very important. Then the output of the student from that activity could be the measurement, could be the basis of the teacher on what really the student learned from that movie. So even in every discussion, there will be a reflection part for them to relate within themselves on what they really learn on their own. So that's very important, the emphasis on metacognition to ensure that there's really effective transfer of learning. So that's the conditions and the principles of transfer. So let's proceed to the factors that affects the transfer of learning. So what are the factors that affect the transfer of learning? So first is the motivation. Motivation is an essential element in learning. Without motivation, effective transfer of learning will be impossible. So as teacher, we need to ensure that the motivation level of a student really increase as they learn that topic that we discussed. How we will increase their motivation level? We'll increase it by letting them to know the relevance of the topic, to their life, to their daily living, to their future career, and what's the impact of this topic to their life as a student and as a human being in this world. So by that way, by that procedure, there will be an increasing level of motivation to the learners. Another is the feedbacking, the positive feedbacking to the students to their performance. So I just want to share to you, the feedbacking tips from my teacher before when I was in high school, applying the KKK. So what's the KKK? Not for katipunan, but kiss, kick, and kiss again. As teacher, as an observer to the performance of the student, we will kiss all the positive, all the good. We will praise the excellent performance of the students, that the strength of the performance of the student. Kick or criticize in a positive way the weaknesses, the negative aspect in the performance of the student. Then kiss again the good performance of the student. Excuse me. To ensure, no, that they will improve something on the performance. So you will kiss, kick, and kiss again. That's an effective way of proper feedbacking. And with having that, the motivation of the student will increase because there will be no hurt feelings. Next is the intellectual ability. Intellectual ability is or plays an important role in learning. So there are students who are good in mathematics, good in English, good in science, good in Filipino, good in social studies. There are also fast learners, slow learners, depending on the capacity and capability of the students. So as teachers, we need to consider their intellectual ability and we need to make sure that no one will be left behind as we discuss, as we will apply their learnings. They will there in the transfer of learnings, no one will be left behind. So the first learners will do the activities that they can, as well as the low learners the way that they can also, considering that their own capacity. Next is the attention spans. So the more time, no, the more time that we allocated for the topic, the more learning. So that's first. So that's the first part of my report. Well, in attention spans, we will always remember that there are times in the discussion which will become boring. So we will not let the student or the learners will be get bored on the discussion, because if the student starts to, in Visayan term, manghuyab na gani, then that will be sleepy. Transfer of learning will be deteriorated. So we will always remember that the attention spans of the learners are very important factors that really affect the transfer of learnings. So how to make that attention spans of the students still activated even though there's a long duration of discussion? So make your topic, the long topic, smaller by chunks. So divide it, and every time have frequent break time to energize, to make the students alive, alert, awake, enthusiastic to learn the topic you presented. So do not get the students to get bored. Next is the last one, the prior knowledge. So prior knowledge is very, very important in transfer of learnings, because because how intelligent you are, if you have no prior knowledge on that topic, then still blank on learning. So therefore, we need to know if the student has its prior knowledge, the stock knowledge on the topic. For example, in learning major or higher chemistry, then the students have no learnings and periodic table. So what will be happen? So the transfer of learning will be cannot be attainable. So therefore, before we will let the students to have their take the higher chemistry, we let them to fully understand the periodic table. This is to ensure that they really learn the basic as they go to the higher level. So prior knowledge is very important in the transfer of learning. So, read this as part of our reflection of our discussion. A preacher used this analogy of the Dead Sea and a Sea of Galilee and life. The Dead Sea is dead. Only a few living things can thrive there because of its high salinity. All the Dead Sea does is receive and receive water. It does not give away. It is dead. It is likened to a person who is psychologically dead because all he does is receive. He never gives away. So the moral lesson from this class: in life, we are challenged not to be a Dead Sea. full of receiving, receiving, receiving without giving. So in learning, we are challenged to be not just receiving knowledge, receiving information, receiving data, receiving topics, but we are encouraged to give, to apply, to transfer it to others or to our daily living by doing it, by living in it, and applying for the betterment of our life. So we will not just only receiving, because we are full of receiving, we in ourselves become useless. Just receiving. Our mindset will be stagnant and we do not know on how to give way those something that we learn. So it's very important that we give. We need to apply and not learn. So in contrast, the Sea of Galilee is full of life. It receives water from the river Jordan and readily gives away. It is generous and teems with life. It is like a person who receives but gives away and shares what he receives from others. So, a moral lesson, no, and the comparison of Dead Sea and the Sea of Galilee in our life mismo, no. So, we're not practicing to become stagnant, no, stagnant in or constant in receiving, but we will try also to be person who have the willingness for improvement, willing to accept to receive something which is good and to give way or to give something that we can to others. So that's the moral lesson. So just like in learning, we're not just reading, we're not just simply listening to the discussion of teacher, but we will try to live in it, apply it in our daily lives for us to make us an effective and productive individual living in our society. So I hope that you learned something from the discussion of Miss Alexa Jane Buensalida, from Marjorie Lagang, and from my discussion, and also to the reflection that we have today. So I hope that you really learn something and be a Sea of Galilee and a productive person living in this society. So that would be all. Thank you for watching this video discussion. Stay safe and God bless us all.